So now I'm going to tear apart this cheap USB adapter that does not supply the 2.1 amps or the 1 amps that it says it does. So there's no sense to keep this since it is obviously junk. So we're going to pry here, and as you can see there, that's pretty thin wire for there's some light over here. That's pretty thin wire. So look at that. Let's see how brittle it is. So as you remember from the other video, these ports were labeled 1 volt or 1 amp and 2.1 amps, but they seem to only barely put out maybe about 600 milliamps for either port. And I was suspecting that the ports were probably just tied together. So, and sure enough, if you look here, let's see if I can. If you look here closely, you can see that, yeah, the traces are just tied together. So each of these ports is just tied together in parallel. So there's no difference between the top port or the bottom port, regardless of what it says here. Like you can see there, they're both tied together. So boom, 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 boom. So total fabrication of total lie. No way that either one of those ports would be different currents. And of course, we found out earlier that it was not even close to putting out 2.1 amps. It could barely put out half an amp, the USB 1 standard. So this charger wouldn't be good for much. If you were using this charger, you'd probably complain that your phone would never charge, or it would charge so slowly. Like you'd have to put it on overnight just to get some charge back in your phone. So nothing special here, just cheap components, but probably unsafe too. I mean, this wire feels pretty flimsy. Look at that, just kind of pulls off. Not that it would be subjected to any kind of stress normally, you know, inside this case, but it's just pretty cheap components, so not worth keeping. Potentially dangerous too with the high voltage there. There doesn't seem to be a little bit of separation, but it looks like there's a little opto oscillator in there. But yeah, it's awful close to the, you know, kind of sandwiching them in there. If you had a pretty good voltage spike go through this thing, it might jump and go into your phone through the USB port. Look how close these components are there. So you might get an arc and go into your phone or something and damage your phone or tablet or whatever you were using. So another good reason not to use cheap Chinese poorly made USB chargers.